Hey, welcome to the Dog on It trucking show. When it comes to safety, the dog is on it. I'm so excited today to have a guest on the show. The guest, Ron Zima, the idle-free guy. Let me bring Ron in and I'll give you a real quick interview of his bio. Hi, Ron. How are you?
Hey, Chris. Woof, woof, woof. So happy to be here.
Oh, that's good.
Doc
And
on
your,
it.
your internet has frozen. I'm so glad to have Ron Zima with me today. Ron is a father of two, originally born in Edmonton, but now I know he resides in Halifax. He's a leader in corporate responsibility and cause branding, has done work with the Salvation Army, and holds an advanced degree in public relations. Ron, welcome to the Dog on It show.
Doggone it, Chris. So happy to be here. Congratulations, by the way, on launching this podcast.
Well, thanks so much. I'm excited to have. I'm fortunate that I've already got my first several speakers lined up, and they're all of great high quality, of which you are the very first one. So this is exciting for me as well.
I'm honored.
Hey, Brian, let's get right into it. The purpose of this show, I hope, is to bring value to the listeners and the watchers, since this is going to be a podcast and on YouTube. So let's get right into it. Ron, tell the audience a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get into what you're doing.
Sure. Sure. Well, Chris had three distinct careers. One was as a radio television guy. So I used to be on the radio as a disc jockey at different locations, including London, Ontario, not far from you, from coast to coast in Canada. Then I was in sales and marketing in high tech. I was in telecom for quite some time, and then got into took a year off and got my advanced diploma in public relations. And out of there, I was recruited by the Salvation Army to head up their fundraising and public relations department for the Maritimes here in Canada. And what a blast. It was not only such a great cause, but got to know so much about good causes and why people support those causes. And along the way, as my kids came along, back at this time, I was hanging around my kids' elementary school and got into this thing with regards to the environment and idling. So here I am today, the idle-free guy.
Well, I was going to ask, what is the idle-free guy? How did you get this whole thing started? And what type of a movement are you trying to generate?
Well, that's a really good question, Chris, because it's still evolving to a certain degree, but it had a distinct nonprofit beginning. So it started at my kids' elementary school. I think you can see the slide here.
Let me pull it up, and
Okay.
we'll let the people see the slide. Yes, they can.
Sure. So back in about 2006, 14, 15 years ago, my kids were in fifth grade, thereabouts. And, I started noticing all the cars idling around my kids' school. And I was thinking, this is right about the time when the headlines were becoming, really noticeable on global warming. And I really was thinking about that because growing up out west, I'd been raised by a mother and grandparents who really influenced me, and they were from Finland, from Scandinavia, and there they really treat the environment, with a lot of deference, and so I always was very green. I was always very environmentally conscious, but when it came to idling my car, I could have cared less, right? At this time, I was what you call your typical Canadian idler, is what I would call it today. And but I looked around my kids' school and I saw all the idling going on, and I went home and did a little research on the numbers, and it just blew me away. I couldn't believe that so much idling was happening, and the metrics behind it. So that blew me away. We started along with the principal there and a lot of concerned parents, started a movement called the Children's Clean Air Network, which today is today a registered charity in Canada, and it's all about educating folks on reducing unnecessary emissions from idling, improving air quality, reducing carbon. for future generations. But lo and behold, over the next couple of years, it was tough to get traction. I mean, we had some car dealers involved, helping sponsor schools across Halifax for the first little while. But as anybody knows in the not-for-profit world, it takes a lot of people, a lot of resources, and it's pretty much run like a business. That's one of the things I learned about the Salvation Army, Chris, was the most effective causes and not-for-profits are run as efficiently as the best businesses. So we just weren't getting enough traction. And more and more people started saying, look, including one of the biggest bus operators here in Atlantic Canada, said, look, we want a program. You've got something going here that, we've got a real idling problem. So I put together a program for the biggest tour company in Atlantic Canada, and we cut their idle by 80% as measured by their fleet data, right? So one thing led to another, and it became, wow, this has really got to become a business. And but along the way, we had a lot of support for the first period of this movement, not least of which was the Olympics in Vancouver endorsed us, and we had an idle-free bus carry the men's hockey teams, and we've had the number one car guy in Canada, who's actually in this photo, Al McPhee, who at the time was the chairman of the Canadian Automobile Dealers Association. He's to this day the honorary chair of the Children's Clean Air Network. But by and large, it really had to become a business. But there's a little bit of the backstory for you.
Right, and in the business, I mean, we all have to be able to make money somehow, some way. You've done work already with several companies that I know of, successfully with your initial tour bus company out in the East Coast. How did you become the idle-free guy? Like, that's quite a reputation that you're trying to hold up.
Yeah, so, well, really, causes need spokespeople. They need a following, needs somebody that they can identify with. So I figured, hey, I'm going to become the guy who knows a lot about this problem. And by the way, it's a problem, but it's also a very exciting opportunity for families and corporations across the U.S. and Canada, indeed around the globe, to save a lot of costs, right? But they need to identify with somebody, just like Safety Dawg. Safety Dawg is synonymous with safety expertise and with your audience, right? Same here. So I had to become the idle-free guy, and that's pretty much it. Branding.
It is branding. And before call the idle-free guy, but before we lose people who know that they can't be idle-free 100% of the time, you have a way of saying it because you recognize that people can't shut their trucks off, their cars off 100% of the time. How is it that you say that in the correct terminology?
Well, we're all about positive engagement. We're all about driver engagement. So what we say is, hey, when you're parked and it makes sense, go idle free for our kids. Yeah, that's sense. Yeah. When you're parked and it makes sense. And people go, well, when the heck is that? You'll know. When you go through our training, you'll know. And people already intuitively know that they shouldn't be sitting for 20 minutes or half an hour outside their kid's school or their kid's hockey rink or what have you. But it's just not in front of them. It's just not, they're not aware. They're like me. I mean, I was green on everything else. I was turning the lights off in my house, conserving water, mulching my grass. But when it came to idling, it was totally invisible to me. And then I realized what a big deal it was. And, to the extent, there's another slide here, just in terms of the metrics on this. This is according to the U.S. Department of Energy funded Argonne National Lab, University of Chicago. There's many different resources with serious research on idle metrics in industry as well as personal cars and trucks. It's about $22 billion across the U.S. and Canada, people running their cars and trucks for no benefit or non-productive idle. in a company truck. So it's a big deal.
I got to think $22 billion of waste
Annually.
fuel annually, as you say, it's got to do something to our environment.
It's a huge drag on our environment, Chris, and that's why we have all these towns and cities across the U.S. and Canada with anti-idling bylaws, which by and large are virtually unenforceable, and our government fleets, by and large, are they're idling a lot. And now, any fleet manager. This is where I want to get into a real life example here. Talk about the numbers for your audience. So let's get into some specifics. You were telling me off camera about having a really animated conversation with a good friend about the numbers behind idle. And anybody that knows about the economics of idle, who's a fleet manager with really good fleet data, and has spent a little bit of time on the fleet data, will understand that it is a big deal. And as an example, a large vocational fleet, this is a real world example, 5,000 trucks, their annual fleet fuel bill about $24 million a year, and they idle in most cases about 50% of the time the engine is on.
Wow.
It's for no productive reason. And we estimate that at about $3 million a year in fuel, right from the bottom line. And then you've got the downstream costs. Fuel is probably the smallest cost avoidance metric in terms of all the costs from driver behavior of idling the vehicle when it's parked. And when it makes sense, we could probably cut back on 80 to 90% of this. We also, by the way, our company, Go Green, and my teammates, we know very well about power takeoff. We know about the productive times to run an engine. However, what drives fleet managers crazy, like Howard here, is when he's looking at his fleet data and he takes a look at these numbers and he understands, oh my God, this is a big deal. How do we get drivers to transform their beliefs and their behavior?
Well, at least some of our listeners, Ron, are in the long-haul trucking industry. And
right.
That's where a lot of work that I do as safety is in the long-haul trucking industry. And they are measuring already their idle time. They have, they're measuring it. They've got it down pat. Not down pat, I shouldn't say that, but they've certainly are aware of the cost of idle. And, if there's a long haul driver listening to this right now, he might say, well, I'm not going to suffer in the cold and not run my truck because my company didn't give me an APU, or I'm not going to suffer in the heat and not run my truck. So long haul trucking is one part of what you are trying to attack.
Right.
Attack, wrong word. You're trying to work and educate people.
Right.
But even in my industry, I know there's times that trucks don't need to be idled for nearly the length of time that they are. But you know that I'm in my Class 8 industry, mostly going to the U.S. What would you say to those drivers?
The very first thing I'd say to those drivers is, I salute you. They've got one of the, long haul truckers in general have one of the most demanding jobs on the planet. Absolutely. And, it's just, not only is it tough to make a living at it, and to be on, the road as much as they are with all the risks involved, they're away from their families. Those trucks on the road away from home are like their room and board away from home. So they've got to be comfortable. So I'd be the first one, if I was out doing the same job and it was 90 degrees in Miami and 98% humidity, I'd be one of the first people idling that vehicle if it wasn't equipped. It's management's job to make sure that the driver is well equipped to idle as little as possible. So we understand that. However, there's also a big element of human control here. And this is where we say when the long haul trucker understands, and he'll know intuitively, he'll know, what? There's a lot of times when it's like, 55 Fahrenheit or 75, whatever. I don't need to be idling my vehicle in this instance. And if they had our training, they would really appreciate this, and they'd be able to really shrink that idle time. Everybody'd be happy. The other thing that would happen is they'd be idling their own personal vehicle a lot less. Because just like you, Chris, how did this open your eyes?
Yeah, and for the audience, I took this Ron's training about 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm one of those guys, being a truck driver in the past, I always showed up on time. And as a matter of fact, I'm usually a half hour, sometimes an hour early. I live in southern Ontario where traffic is horrendous, and I hate being late for appointments. So I do a lot of work from my car. I fire up my laptop and tether to the cell phone, and I work. So after I took your course, I probably reduced my idle time by greater than 50%, especially in those instances. There was one time when I took Tina to the doctor's appointment. I know it was during the summer, and I still remember it because normally I would have sat there with the car running and the air conditioning on. But it happened to be a beautiful day, and I turned off the damn car, opened up the windows, and sat there working in absolute comfort when I didn't need to have the air conditioning on. And I was going to say about the Class 8 trucks, Ron, there are times I know when drivers go indoors. They're not in their cab of their trucks, and for some reason they leave the truck running. There's a belief system that, geez, if I shut my truck off, I'm wearing out the starter, I'm doing all kinds of stuff. Same thing for a car. If you shut your car off, you're wearing out the starter. I know you've got a comment because in the course you talk directly to that issue.
Absolutely. And what we do is we equip fleet operators, long-haul truck operators, you name it, along with the drivers in their personal vehicles to really understand what this means. There's three things that really flip the driver's emotional behavior switch on this. And I'm going to flip over to that right here, Chris. So here on this slide, what we've proven conclusively over the last couple of years, working with large fleets, many fleets and many drivers and operators, 80% of the time, drivers will change their idling beliefs and behavior with effective messaging around three core values that we all universally share as drivers, that we care about. And that's the health and well-being of their kids. That could be school-age kids to a 90-year-old older kid at home who's got lung disease. Their cars. What does it mean to their cars? All this idle time, the effect that has on their cars, their cash. When they understand. So in my training, as you've seen, I've documented how, hey, here I was, a super environmentally conscious guy, but when it came to idling, I was off the charts, like most people are, but they're not doing it consciously. And what I document in my training is how I saved an average of about 280 engine hours per year from my previous lifestyle, which adds up to about $3,000 in fuel over the course of 10 years. I reduced all that wear and tear on my personal vehicles, increased their resale value, because as any auto tech, service tech will tell you, unnecessary idle is like hard city miles on a personal vehicle. And what it does to a Class 8 to a Class 6, it's unbelievable. Cummins, Detroit Diesel, and all you have to do is talk to the service guys in the shop at a Class 8 operation, and they'll tell you what all this idle does to those vehicles. But it's all about understanding what are idling, our old beliefs, and around the idle myths. Idling is good, restarts are bad. We go through this in our training. In fact, no, restarts aren't bad at all. We've got the auto experts. We've got a leading car dealer as part and parcel of our training, and we go through all the different scenarios of why anybody would want to idle, and we blow out those myths. And one of the biggest ones for us guys, Chris, restarts are bad. It's totally false. This is back. Yes, that was true back in the 60s, pump and start, but no, these are now finely tuned computers on wheels, fuel injected. They are engineered, whether it's a Class 8 truck in most cases to a light duty car truck, are engineered to be driven, not idled.
Absolutely. And I know you can safely stop your car, turn it off. One of the silly things that I try to do now is at a railroad crossing. It's one of the things where I look at it and go, man, this is a long train. And if it makes sense, I'll turn my car off now. I'm not afraid of it not starting anymore. Back when I was a younger man, didn't have the same quality of car, and cars weren't built the same back then either. I wouldn't have stopped my car for fear of it not starting.
Right. Well, Chris, it's interesting because virtually every original equipment manufacturer, the manufacturers of the large long-haul trucks to the light-duty cars and trucks, every one of them, if you look inside your owner-operator manual, it will say, do not idle our technology for anything longer than a minute or two, and in many cases, 30 seconds. And in fact, the more you idle at colder temperatures, the worse it is for it. And I go through this in my training. So it's just, we're really not, this isn't news. This is all buried in the OEM's, manuals that everybody, it's buried in there. So nobody's really aware of it. Nobody's really effectively come out with a training, certification, branding program like we have. And by the way, this is the first to market, and we're getting some rave reviews. We're working with some very large corporate fleets now.
Right. And speaking of going to market, one of the hopes that I know you have for long haul trucking, because as I had mentioned already, they do a good job already of measuring. They've often reduced significantly their idle time. But one of the things that they don't have is a certification that they are doing what is best for their companies and for the environment. What would you say to that?
Well, it's a big opportunity in terms of, in terms of certifying. So having what operators are looking for is a systematic way to get their drivers engaged, get them systematically reducing idle over the long haul, no pun intended, and then measuring that, constantly keeping it down. But then these trucking companies need to often report to their big customers, whether it's a Walmart or a Loblaws or what have you, to say, look, this is how sustainable we are. These are our numbers on idle. This is what we're doing. So with our program, it's a way to systematically engage the drivers, train them, drive that idle down, certify the results, and then promote those results with a certification logo. I'll flip back here on their fleet vehicle. That is part of our program. If we're able to, bring that idle time down, in most cases we are. So that can do a couple of things. It's not only going to make them cut costs and look like heroes, but it's going to certify that they've reduced X amount of fuel from driver idling behavior. And by the way, this isn't just in the fleet vehicle. Our philosophy is, and we've proven it time and time again, that this whole process begins with driver buy-in at home. So we really evangelize them on their personal vehicles. We do, talk more about the business aspects of idling metrics, but we really focus them on what this means to their kids, their cars and trucks, their cash. They flip a switch. And when you come in and flip your behavior, you're idle free behind every wheel. That's at home and at work. So, but this all can be a very high profile initiative that's celebrated. So when we did this big tour company here, they've been celebrated many times over as the idle free leaders and the idle-free bus company. It's helped win them government contracts. It's earned them business, employee affinity, and lots of public relations and media. So,
right. So I'm just going to flip back to the shared screen here and throw something at you that I'm sure most of our guests or our listeners know, that we have a conversation before we go live as to what the questions are going to be. But here's a question that I just thought of, and hopefully we don't have to edit it out. But are you looking?
Sure.
So first of all, the logo that you were talking about when you said there's a logo that companies can get, it's the logo that's on the back of the pickup truck, right?
Correct.
So if a fleet was to be certified as idle-free, which means they've significantly reduced their idle time, they could get, through your organization, they could get these logos for their trucks, and they could do a social media blitz and campaign and promote this to major customers. Is that what you're saying?
That's part of our vision, and that's part of our program, yes. And it's part of the whole training, certification, branding, business engagement that we would do with that fleet, yes.
Okay, and are you looking for fleets to participate now?
Absolutely, particularly the larger fleets who, and we know that there's Class 8 leaders out there, Chris, okay, who have the resources. We know the smaller fleets are just trying to make a go of it day by day. They hardly have time to look at their data and what have you. The larger, more sophisticated fleets who already have driven down their their non-operational idle time down to around 6 or 10%. They're leaders. They're doing a fantastic job, but nobody knows. And they could be seen as leaders. We want to talk to those corporate fleets, and we can tell them more about our program, our certification process, and we'd love to hear from them and have a really good business conversation about what this could mean for their not only their bottom line, but for their image.
Perfect. So for the listeners, if somebody is interested, I'll have Ron's contact information below in the notes for the YouTube or podcast. Right, Ron? So
absolutely.
There, I just flashed that back up because that's the logo on the back of the pickup truck that your corporation could earn. So, Ron, I know that you've got a special gift for our listeners.
We do, Dawg, and that is that we have, as a public service for a limited time, we have put much of our content, including the lessons, the basic lessons on how to get your drivers in your trucking company, your small trucking company, to, take a look at their own idling beliefs and behavior in their personal vehicles and flip the switch. So if your audience said, hey, we want our guys and girls to go to Idle Free for Our Kids on Facebook and go to our video section and start consuming those video lessons there, they, in most cases, just like Chris Harris Safety Dog did, they're going to go, oh my God, I had no idea I was idling this much and what it meant to my kids and people I care about, the air quality, exhaust pollution, so on and so forth, what it's doing to my car and truck, what it's doing to my cash. We've got those lessons there for Safety Dog's audience to take a look at and take advantage of. So have those drivers go through those lessons. So that's one thing. The other thing we're going to throw at you is the Idle Free Calculator. So we'll put this as a link on your page as well, Chris. And that's where so part of our training certification process for bigger fleets is where it's on our own learning management system. But here, folks will, this isn't readily available on Facebook, but we'll make it available to Dawg's audience so that drivers, after they've taken the lessons, will actually be able to go onto the Idle Free Calculator and calculate all the different instances, minutes, hours, where they idle, what it adds up to in fuel and CO2 emissions.
All right, perfect. And I'll put a link to that in the notes below. Now, just Idle Free Calculator. Where did you get? Who helped you with that? Can we put a plug out there?
Absolutely. A shout out to Ward Workington, our good buddy at Fleet Metrica, one of the leading fleet analytics companies in North America. They are a strategic partner of ours, Go Greens, and we're so pleased to be working with them. They're experts on helping fleets understand what that ELD data is telling them about idle, and And we're working on some pretty cool stuff with Fleet Metrica to help fleets be able to manage that and drive those costs down.
Perfect. Any other shout outs that you need to make?
Well, hey, I just want to shout out to Chris Harris, Safety Doc, because I know you're a big proponent of this whole idea, and really all it is, Chris, is it's in your wheelhouse. This is all about education and awareness and getting everybody on board. It's not about, hey, you're doing this bad, you're doing this wrong, what have you. When people really understand that the OEMs are behind this, the auto experts are behind this, it's just take a look at the numbers. And I know everybody wants to do the right thing today about the environment and certainly about costs. Take a look at this, and the more the better educated you are, the more aware you are, the better driver you will be, and it's going to be good for all of us. So it's a big shout out to Chris Harris, because I know you've been a big fan of this, and we really appreciate that.
Well, I've been a big fan because to me it made sense. At first, when I met you, it scared the bejesus out of me. Idle free, I can't go idle free. But when you say idle free when it makes sense, that's a totally different thing. And I know I've reduced my idle. My car is, I'm sure, in much better shape because I've reduced my idle, and I've got extra bucks in my pocket because I've reduced.
I think you calculated originally, as I recall, I think it was something about $300 a year.
Yeah.
Because Chris, I was burning 280 engine hours a year. I document what this added up to, and it was about $300 a year. Okay, over the course of 10 years. That was $3,000. And people can take a look at my math. They can take a look at the methodology. And it, I think, will resonate with most people like it did with you. By the way, there's one other thing I'm going to mention, because we talked about the logo and getting idle free for our kids certified on a big fleet or what have you. People go, hey, if we put idle free, a logo on our vehicle and the driver's caught idling, what happens then, right? Well, actually, what we've proven is that it's one of the best things that you can do. It's part of the idle-free habit loop. So what happens is when the drivers get the training, just like human beings, all of us, it takes anywhere from 30 to 60 days to embed a new habit where it becomes what's called automatistic. It's automatic. You don't even think about it. And that takes anywhere from 30 to 60 days. So what happens is the drivers get the training. 80% of the time they buy in, they love it, they go, oh my God, I had no idea. And then at a certain point, the fleet's certified, the logos go on, and then what happens is the driver is reminded every time he goes up to the vehicle, that's right, I'm an idle-free driver today. And the rare time that he forgets, the public says, hey, you guys are doing a great job on idling, but you forgot. Oh, thanks. And becomes self-managing. It becomes part of the whole idle-free culture that the fleet is now part of. So just wanted to kind of preempt that objection, probably. So,
well, thanks, Ron. I would really want to thank you for appearing on the show today, and I know our listeners got value from this. So, and all the links to contacting Ron, to the calculator, to the free videos on Facebook, the links will be in the show notes. All right, let me show. I see you just switched screens there, so there we go.
That's right. For our corporate friends at the bigger Class 8 fleets, if they're interested, goidlefree.com. They'll find a whole lot more information there. And for your other listeners who are running a day-to-day business and just trying to get their drivers on board with reducing idle, we've put our lessons as a public service, and this is for the general public as well, on our Facebook page, Idle Free for Our Kids.
I was going to say, and like sons and daughters can take this course as well from our listeners, right?
Absolutely. Though, if you got 3 or 4 cars in the driveway, potentially you could be saving at least $1,000 a year in idle, right? That's just in fuel.
Yeah. So I would encourage everybody to, if they know of somebody who drives and they want to educate them on idle, this is a great way to do it. So Ron, again, I want to thank you from Halifax, and good luck promoting Idle Free. I know in my heart, as the world gets, more environmentally aware, I think. This is a cause that has to grow.
Oh, it's not a hard sell, Chris. It's not a hard sell. The guy with the fuel can there, Al McPhee, he's one of the top car guys in Canada. He could have cared less about this, and when he found out what he says, "Oh my God, we got to get behind this. This makes perfect sense, not only for our business, but for the planet, for people, and for business. It's the triple bottom line. So there's nothing not to like, you know. So
Yeah,
let's go idle free for our kids."
it's perfect. Thanks so much, Ron, for being on the show today.
Thanks, Dawg.
We'll talk soon.
Dawg got it.